Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Hardware Podcast. My name is Jackson Danner, alongside my good friend Omar Borja. Omar is wearing his shirt. I'm just here for the mayo, and that's right, that's mayo as in mayonnaise, because he just got back. Not this week, but I guess the week before from the Duke's Mayo Classic. No, we're not talking about Georgia Clemson. We're talking about that App State beautiful game. So, yeah, man. How was it visiting the best classic that there is?
I'll be honest. Like I said that ECU App State would be the game of the weekend in Charlotte, and it was the second best game of the weekend in Charlotte. Of course, Charlotte Duke happened Friday, that I was also at, but it was the second best one. It was way better than Clemson, Georgia. I mean, if you like scoring, then that one was better than Clemson, Georgia. But I guarantee you that game would have been a sellout if it wasn't on Thursday. So in the future, Duke's Mayo Classic organizers, throw these group of five teams a bone. Have them play on Sunday, if anything.
If you're a fan of defensive line play, really good defensive line play, or if you enjoyed Super Bowl 53, then you probably enjoyed Clemson, Georgia. But not that would not be the case with App State ECU. So man, but I hope the rest of this year is half as good as week one college football, because it was awesome. I mean, what a hell of a weekend.
Absolutely. I mean, like so many upsets, especially FCS versus FBS upsets, which we'll get into later on, of course, with some of our player selections. But just seemed like there was so many FCS over FBS upsets, especially blowouts too. Like looking at you, Vandy and East Tennessee State. Congrats to the Pirates. Like earlier this decade, at the beginning of this decade, East Tennessee State did not have a football team, and here they are beating Vandy. And I'd hate to say it, but it looks like Derek Mason was the man built for that job.
Yeah, it sure does. So, yeah, man, I can't wait to say this is going to be an awesome year. It feels like this offseason hit harder than usual, but yeah, man, let's get right into it. So we're going to go week one, players of the week, two QBs, two RBs, two receivers, two defensive players. We're just going to do a draft style. So, Omar, I will let you have the first overall pick with quarterback. Who you like?
So my first pick at quarterback, I'm gonna go with the man that is no stranger to being mentioned on this podcast, a man that plays in the Seven Hills of Worcester, a man that I've compared to Zach Wilson, the Seven Hills. I'm gonna go with Matthew Sluka for Holy Cross, and and I just gotta say, like with the go ahead, Jax.
You compared Sluka to Zach Wilson, and Zach Wilson was compared to Patrick Mahomes. So you're basically saying that Patrick Mahomes of Holy Cross is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's too. I think it's too far. I'm too deep to change the nickname from Zach Wilson to Patrick Mahomes. But what a performance by Matthew Sluka in Holy Cross's first FBS win since a 2003 win again, or 2002 win against guess who? Army, sadly. But in that game, Matthew Sluka was very versatile. He not only managed the game, but he was a game breaker on the ground. Went 9 of 16 for 123 yards, passing 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Rushing the ball, he had 14 carries for 112 yards, including a 76-yard run that put the Crusaders in the red zone to seal the game and go up by 2 scores later on. A 76-yard run where you could see the ghosts of Gordy Lockbaum, 1986 and 87 Heisman finalists, Bill Osmanski, Pro Bowler and College Football Hall of Famer from the 30s and 40s. You can see the ghosts in that run right there. But all jokes aside, Matthew Sluka is improving weekly. There's a lot of excitement out in Worcester. There's a lot of excitement for me because Holy Cross has never won a playoff game, and this team's looking like the class of the Patriot League. So Matthew Sluka is my first pick for this week. Mostly a homer pick, but really the guy is improving. I can't wait to see what he's going to be like in his senior year. He's only a freshman, by the way, too.
Man, Omar, putting a lot of pressure on a Holy Cross freshman. Good grief. Man, I'm going to go with my first pick of quarterback. I'm going to go with a guy named Ren Heffley. Yeah, if you haven't heard of him, you should have. He's quarterback for Presbyterian, 38 for 50. I'm pretty good percentage-wise. 538 yards, double-digit touchdowns, 10 touchdowns, 10, all fingers. and Lester JPP, the Michigan transfer, just lit it up at Presbyterian. So awesome job. Hats off to Ren Heffley. Amazing performance, making us all proud of it.
Yeah, and we're not talking about Greg Heffley, Dive Wimpy Kid, main character, protagonist. We're talking about Ren Heffley. And that system, I'm not sure, Jackson, but I'm not sure if you know this, but their coach is a coach that never punts, Kevin Kelly. So that's going to be a wild system to see how that
Really?
unfolds.
Not
Yeah,
know
they
that.
hired Kevin Kelly. So they
That
didn't
high
punt.
school coach?
Yeah, the high school coach.
I missed that. That's awesome.
Yeah, no punts, numerous onside kicks. We'll see how that works against San Diego, you know, the heavyweights of the Pioneer Football League, and Davidson too. I mean, because Davidson, you want to take the ball out of Davidson's hands with that option. But it worked against St. Andrews, which I think is an NAIA school. I mean, we'll just see.
Yeah, man. I mean, he killed it. So, I mean, we could see him realistically. We could see him go 100 tutties this year. I mean, if he keeps this rate up and slows down a little bit, we could still see him going. Are we doing a snake draft or do you want alternate?
Um, I mean, you're the fantasy football player here, man. So it's up to you.
That's how my fantasy draft was a couple weeks ago. I'll go with another transfer quarterback. Oklahoma transfer, backed up Jalen Hurts. All those guys for a little bit. Tanner Mordecai, a quarterback from SMU, 24 for 30, 317 yards, 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So 2 transfer quarterbacks for me, 17 touchdowns total, 0 interceptions.
And honestly, that Sonny Dykes system is a very quarterback friendly system. Like it's responsible for resurrecting careers. Like you look at Shane Buechele, the last 2 years at SMU, absolutely amazing work in that system. And now Tanner Mordecai. So absolute kudos. If you don't watch SMU, just watch them at least once or twice this year because that system is absolutely amazing as Tanner Mordecai. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the regular show when I think about Mordecai. I need to grow up. But I'm going to stay in the American with my next pick, and I'm going to go with Michael Pratt, who is arguably the revelation of the weekend in terms of the Heisman race, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on. But Michael Pratt had an absolutely amazing game, almost leading Tulane back with 3 touchdowns, no picks, 296 yards. And I believe he also led the team in rushing, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to verify that really quick. But Michael Pratt, I mean, and that's a guy that we've been hyping beforehand. We hyped him as his game as a Heisman elimination game. And even though Tulane ended up losing by inches, oh my gosh, it was, and he did it. By the way, he did end up leading the team rushing. Even though Tulane ended up losing by inches, not converting the 4th down, they proved themselves to be a contender in the American. I mean, at least a contender to fill the 2nd spot in the title game, because I do think they're a bit behind Cincinnati still. But Michael Pratt is a name to watch out for, especially with some key games in the American. If you look at their schedule, do they get Cincinnati? Okay, they have Ole Miss. Ole Miss on September 18th is going to be a barn burner. They got Cincinnati, they got UCF. So Pratt's got plenty of opportunities against great competition.
Definitely, man. Honestly, you think they win that game if it's in NOLA?
It's hard to
For those
say,
of
but I
you
think
who don't know, the game, because of Hurricane Ida, it was originally supposed to be in Tulane or at Tulane, got moved to Norman with all that. And so anyways, ended up being a home game for Oklahoma, but man, they might have won that thing if it was at home.
Yeah, I think so. And that's something we'll always never know. But man, like I love where Tulane's at. I love when the great academic private schools are doing great in college football. I think college football is better when the Northwesterns are contending, when Vandy and Wake Forest are, and now Tulane. So we'll see. The American race is going to be scorching this year. Absolutely scorching.
Oh man. Oh, absolutely. I'll go ahead and I'll move us on to running backs. My first guy that I had was Zay Bowser, running back from UCF, 172 yards. This is what caught my eye. 119 of those after contact. So incredible balance, running through guys like crazy there against Boise State. He had 1 touchdown. Also had 4 receptions for 29 yards. You know me, almost every time we talk about running backs, you have to be able to catch the ball as a back.
Absolutely. And that UCF system too, like the Gus Malzahn system, you know, those backs are going to get their share of carries and everything. And again, UCF, go ahead.
You could say that he was bouncing off guys. with the after contact.
Is
And
that is that a is that a yeah, okay. I thought it was a stadium reference. Yeah, okay. No, I like that. I like that for sure. No. Yeah, I like it. I'm a fan of that. But again, like we said, the AAC race. I almost said AAF because you got me thinking about the bounce house and the Orlando Apollos. The AAC race is gonna be scorching.
man, I was having a good night. Now you have me all sad again thinking about the Alliance. So rip the Alliance.
I'm
Apollos for
sorry. Shots. That's all I gotta say. But
fake
um
Abe. I think that hashtag's still around. Go ahead. Go with your two running backs.
so my first running back I'm gonna go with Kenneth Walker out of Michigan State. An absolutely amazing performance. 23 carries, 264 yards, and 4 touchdowns against what was a strong Northwestern defense. Now they lost some folks this past year, so that contributed to it. But I mean, absolutely a great start for Michigan State, especially after the year they had last year. I think where they went 2-6. Uh, the Big Ten East now it still looks like it's Ohio State's and now even Penn State too. So there's upward battle, but Kenneth Walker's a name that at least is on people's radar after the performance he had in a blowout win against Northwestern.
Yeah, man, he had an awesome job. You are confusing all of our listeners by taking a Power Five running back, and I take the Group of Five. So apologies if and I am Jackson, and my co-host is Omar. So I'm still me. Go ahead with your second back that you had.
So my second back, when I was doing research for this evening, my reaction was, "Oh, he ran for that many yards," because I was at this game and I was surprised to find out that he had 255 yards and 3 touchdowns. I had Mateo Durant out of Duke. Impressive. Now I don't think he's going to be in awards, well, unless he keeps up this production because it's week 1. We can have fun with all these what ifs. But Duke is really struggling in terms of football, as we saw with their loss to Charlotte. No disrespect to Charlotte, but that's a team that Duke beat by 34 last year. Kind of shows the regression in the program, but really that's a system, Duke system. If you even with Daniel Jones, that's a system where you just down a good spread running game, quarterback can run a good amount. That's where David Cutcliffe wants his system to be at. If you think about the 2013 Duke team, that was their calling card, running the ball and taking the ball to the quarterback's hands. So Durant should get a share of carries. But I think Duke's gonna be playing from behind a lot, so that might limit his stats. But great game on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. He had a phenomenal performance, and it was awesome to see him out there with Duke. And yeah, despite the loss, still very productive. Still did a great job. My last guy that I'm going with is Ramon Jefferson, running back for Sam Houston, transferred from Maine. 11 attempts, 143 yards, a touchdown, and a 13 average yards per carry. Nothing eye popping. He hasn't played since 2018 though. Injury in 2019, I believe, and then I believe an opt out from COVID last spring. I am having trouble finding that information on Maine's or Sam Houston's website. But man, hats off to Ramon Jefferson having a game, and man, he's if he can keep it up, that's a guy we're talking about with Walter Payton Award.
Something you forgot to know, Jackson. The WAC is back. The Western Athletic Conference is back. But I mean, you mentioned another guy from Sam Houston, and they still got Chiquez Ezard. They still got Eric Schmidt. They still got all the guys, like a lot of guys in defense. Like that team's loaded. And North Dakota State, they have like more competition, even though Sam Houston State's the defending champs. Like Sam Houston is well within their power to defend their title. So that's something to look out for in the FCS level.
Oh, absolutely.
I guess moving on to receivers. Is it my pick now for receivers?
Yeah, you'll get first. I'll do two. You do your last.
Okay, so for my first pick for receivers, I'm gonna go with Jalen Tolbert, hometown guy for South Alabama from Mobile. 5 catches, 168 yards, deep threat against Southern Miss. I'm surprised by how far Southern Miss has fallen as a program. No offense, Jackson. I know I know your sister went there, but it's like I know you see it too. Like it's getting ugly out there in Hattiesburg. But all credit to Tolbert, deep threat. He's got a Bowling Green team that has not been good in a couple years, so we could be seeing more great Jalen Tolbert performances. And there's plenty of good receivers in the Sun Belt, in the Fun Belt. You got Javon Hiley, and I know he's not a receiver, but he catches passes. Isaiah Likely, a guy that I'm sure you're doing your research on in terms of draft stuff. Just a fun conference of great pass catchers too. So and Arkansas State loves to sling the ball around too. And I think that's one of your guys. I don't want to spoil it, but yeah. So Jalen Tolbert is my first receiver.
Omar, you weren't teasing it, you were spoiling it. But anyways, yeah, I was joking around with my sister during the Southern Miss game because there was like Southern Miss was down by like 4 touchdowns or whatever. And ESPN had the idea to put the decimals in the final like minute left, like 45.4 seconds. I was like, well, 45 seconds, I don't really see it, but 45.6, like, they still have a shot. So it was funny watching I think we were the only 2 people watching the end of that. My first guy, I'm going to go with Corey Rucker, a receiver from Arkansas State. 9 receptions out of 11 targets, 138 yards, 3 touchdowns, which I thought was awesome.
Like absolutely great performance, and like it just seems there's so many guys like left off. I'm gonna actually bump off one of my guys for a new guy that I'm sure you don't have, but I'm gonna go with Dennis Houston out of Western Illinois. 12 catches, 237 yards, and 2 touchdowns in a very strong performance by Western Illinois. Western Illinois went winless in the spring season, but yet they played Ball State, defending MAC champs, defending Arizona Bowl champs, a team that a lot of people had as a trendy upset against Penn State. They played Ball State very competitively, and it was a 1-score game. It was a 1-score loss for the Western Illinois Leathernecks. Yeah, it was 2 scores, 31-21, but Western Illinois is up in that game, largely to the efforts of Dennis Houston, 12 for 237, 2 touchdowns. Now, we'll see how he does later in the year in terms of Walter Payton award race, because he has North Dakota State in that conference. I don't know if they dodge him. Yeah, they end up dodging North Dakota State, but they do have South Dakota State on the schedule, as well as North Dakota and Southern Illinois. So we'll see. But Dennis Houston, great performance against Ball State.
Yeah, definitely, man. He performed awesome, and I'm looking forward to seeing that develop. We can, talk about Biletnikoff stuff and all that, but that's something I'm looking forward to. My next guy, the scouting and draft perspective in me really wants to say Dontario Drummond, who we all saw, Ole Miss receiver against Louisville. I'm going to go with Bryce Singleton, the receiver from Florida International. 6 receptions out of 6 targets, 149 yards and a touchdown. Literally caught everything that came his way. Less receptions and just a few less yards than Drummond, and both had a touchdown. So I'm going to go with Singleton.
That is honestly great to hear, because during the fall, Florida Internationals, or FIU, I'm not sure anyone calls them Florida International anymore, really, but FIU's passing game was absolute. It was sad at times, really. And they had a great running back last year. So I'm pulling out my preview. I don't exactly remember his name. Please don't be mad at me, Conference USA fans. But they had a great running back last year. If I can find the page, goodness. But they had a great running game. The passing game was always a crutch though last year. As I'm approaching the page, there we go. Devontae Price. For those of you that watched Florida or FIU last year, great back. Really carried the load on offense, but last year they only averaged 123.4 yards a game passing. So it's great to see the passing game working out well, and Bryce Singleton having a great game there.
Oh, absolutely. It was awesome to see that. And Drummond's a name we're going to mention more than one time on this podcast for sure. Singleton, hopefully we continue to see that kind of production. Obviously, Singleton's performance was a little bit more surprising than Drummond's, but we'll talk about both hopefully in the future. I'll go ahead and go first with my defensive guy. I'm going to go with Riley Moss, a corner out of Iowa. Only 1 solo tackle, 2 passes defended, and 2 pick sixes. Anytime you get in the end zone twice as a defensive player, we got to talk about it.
Oh, of course. Yep. Defensive touchdowns, we love them, honestly. And they do go a long way in terms of, or at least I think, in terms of award voting. My guy for defense, I'm going to go with Olakunle Fatukasi out of Rutgers, a guy who had 3 sacks against Temple. 6 tackles and 1 forced fumble. Last year, he had a quiet 100 tackles in 8 games. And I say quiet because let's be real. When the Big Ten started late, the only teams we were really paying attention to were the teams with a national championship, really, I guess, intentions. Like we're looking at Ohio State, Northwestern at times, Indiana. Those are the only teams that people were like really paying attention. So 100 tackles in an 8-game season, very impressive. And people seem to be high on this Rutgers team for sure. And it'll be interesting to see what Greg Schiano can do because again, that's home for him, and he knows what works out there in Jersey.
Oh, absolutely. My next guy is, since I can't do the entire Georgia defense, I'm gonna go with Pop Bush, safety out of New Hampshire. 10 tackles, 8 of them solo, 3 of those being TFLs, 2 passes defended, a 65-yard interception return as well. So Bush had himself a night.
Oh, absolutely. Great to see great. I mean, great defensive performances all around. Like any school you look at, especially Georgia too. Like, and I know we had this talk. We thought the offenses were gonna be showcased in the Duke's Mayo Classic, but that just wasn't the truth. And if we're being honest, it was detrimental to both quarterbacks' Heisman campaigns too, which I'm sure we'll get into later on towards the end of this podcast. But again, time will tell. Maybe JT Daniels picks it up in the SEC play. Same thing with DJ Uyagalele. We'll see. For my last defensive guy, I'm going to go with someone close to home. I'm going to go with Andre Carter out of Army, a lanky outside linebacker. He's 6'7". He's got good size. Pro scouts are starting to look at him the same way they looked at John Radigan, who just made the Seahawks a 53-man roster. I think that makes 2 Army linebackers in the pros, but he had 3 sacks against Georgia State in a game that Georgia State was favored in a game that honestly, I feel like a lot of Army fans we're nervous, a little bit nervous, not too as nervous as he could be, but Quad Brown can throw the ball a lot. Georgia State had, I think, 10 starters on offense returning from a bowl winning team. So this week, though, it should be interesting to see the matchup of the Army pass rush led by Carter against Bailey Zappi and Western Kentucky, as Zappi was that great Houston Baptist transfer who had 1,800 yards in 4 games, and now he's at Western Kentucky and threw for 7 touchdowns in his first game. So that's a matchup to watch, and that's I guess I kind of gave away one of the matchups, for next week, but I'll choose another one.
Hey, we'll talk about that game a little bit. That might have been on my list, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Man, so much of sports media is so negative, and we really try not to do that on this show. I think that we're a few guys that we actually were disappointed in, and we're not trying to hate on them or anything. I think we all hope to see them do better. But Omar, who are a few guys that you were a little bit disappointed in their performance this past week?
I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna go with Derek King. I really thought so. While I didn't think that Miami would win, I thought it would be competitive. And that just wasn't the case, honestly. And yeah, like honestly, like I love Derek King has got an amazing body of work over the past, 5 years, 2017, 18, 19, 20, or past 4 seasons. But for him to really launch a Heisman campaign, he needed a signature game like that. And while I don't think that'll prevent him from getting votes from him creeping up in like the top 10. I just think him winning it, the chances of him winning it are kind of toast with that one. Kind of disappointing for me.
It was kind of like Michael Pratt versus Oklahoma. He didn't have to win it. He just had to like be competitive. And Miami was not competitive. It was the second straight week we had a fake football team on TV. And it was tough to watch, man. So
Doggone, man. That was harsh. That was harsh, man. That was hard. And I think I'm a homer.
Miami would win in a landslide versus Bishop Sycamore. I'll say that. So is that a compliment? I don't know.
Sure.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go hand in hand. DJ Uyangalele, 19 for 37, 178 yards and a pick six. Pick six, not completely his fault. Gosh, and that's his poor performance is not 100% on him. He looked like Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl out there running around, from sideline to sideline, avoiding the pass rush. Because that pass rush was incredible by Georgia. It was the first game that Clemson hadn't scored a touchdown since the 2017 semifinal versus Bama. So it's been a while since they've had a game that bad, pre-Trevor Lawrence era. So that was tough to watch. I'm going to say even worse was JT Daniels, 22 for 30, 135 yards and a pick. He played just as poorly, if not worse, and he didn't have the pass rush that Uyunglele had in his face, at least not as badly. So those two guys, I think, kind of go hand in hand as far as my disappointment. Do you have another one, or because I have one more guy
Um,
we had talked about?
Yeah, I got one, and I think this is more of like a team disappointment. But Levi Lewis against Texas, and
Oh,
if you look at the stats, it wasn't exactly his fault. I mean, Louisiana, they gave up 38 points to Texas. He had 282 yards, but I just think it's disappointing the fact that Louisiana didn't win because that would have been huge for his Heisman campaign. To beat Texas at Darrell K. Royal, that would have been huge for Louisiana's not only New Year's Six, but potentially their playoff campaign too. If we're talking a win
yeah.
against Texas and a win against Coastal in the conference championship game. So Levi Lewis, I'm sure he'll have a great year. He played great, but just not being able to come up top and not only that, it just wasn't as competitive as say Oklahoma Tulane. So that's my other guy
It
really.
certainly would have put him in the New Year's Six conversation for sure. If they
Unless they
had,
beat Coastal, unless they beat like a 12-0 Coastal, I think, and if they run the table, and Coastal's 12-0 in the conference championship game, then I can totally see them at the table. But then they'd have to leap Cincinnati.
yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, no, that was another one that was disappointing. I think my last guy, I texted you about him, Mike Penix. We know he can play better than how he did. 14 for 31, 156 yards and 3 interceptions. He had a rough game. We've hyped up Penix many times before on the pod, and we know he'll improve throughout the year. But that was tough to watch. In his debut for this season with Indiana. So yeah, and like I said, we're not trying to be negative. We're just trying, we're just because we both know that all these guys can do a lot better and that they will do a lot better throughout the year. So we're not poking fun at them or anything. Hell of a lot better than I could have done out there. So and Omar though, I don't know, you could have done better with all your special teams experience in high school. So um, moving on kind of into our top five Heisman, we'll just kind of brief over this real quick before week 2 games to watch. Real quick, who are your top 5 Heisman candidates so far after week 1?
So my 5 are, of course, I'm sure number one's probably Bryce Young. Definitely with I mean, an impressive performance. If there are any doubts, he knocked it out of the park, right there. Number two, I'm gonna have to go CJ Stroud at the moment because of Ohio State and the stats were good for him, like the yards per attempt and everything. The efficiency was great for CJ Stroud, but Ohio State just took a while picking it back up. And I know you have doubts about that Ohio State team, for sure. Number three, I got Michael Pratt. Just give him some time, honestly, and we'll see. Like, cause he's got some absolute like realistically, if he balls out against Ole Miss, UCF, Cincinnati, like those are three like nationally important games, not just important for the eight for in the AAC conference race. Mike Pratt as well. Number four, I'm gonna go with Matthew Sluka out of Holy Cross just for kicks. The long history of Heisman finalist for Holy Cross. So I got to go with Matthew Sluka. And then for my fifth guy, I think for my fifth guy, it's a tough call, but I'm gonna go with Keaton Slovis, especially like coming up this week. And like I think the first, like, I feel like USC is kind of back this year. Like that San Jose State game beating them kind of decisively. Like they hung around, but it wasn't that close towards the end. And I know Scott's gonna hate us for that, but I got Keaton Slovis at number 5.
As much as I'd love to be on the Holy Cross hype train, I do not have Sluka in my top 5 for the Heisman race. You did know that's the award we're talking about, right? Okay,
Hey, Steve McNair. Steve McNair came in at I think number 3 or so in 93 at the Alcorn State. A D2 guy, Joe Dudek, also got votes from Plymouth State University.
fair
So
enough. Fair enough. My top 3 are identical, actually. I have Bryce Young, then I have CJ Stroud, then I have Michael Pratt. My last 2, I don't have either of your guys. I have Matt Corral as number 4, a name that's gotten just a hell of a lot of attention in the NFL circles and scouting circles and all that. He lit it up against Louisville. My fifth guy, Desmond Ritter, who I'm surprised we haven't talked about yet, quarterback from Cincinnati, 295 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 31 rush yards. He improved at 32-6 as a starter, and man, if there was no drop off from 2020 Cincinnati to 2021 Cincinnati, they look like they picked up right where they left off in that near Peach Bowl victory.
I was thinking about Ritter, but the one reason I didn't really have him on my list was because Cincinnati loves to run the ball, and that's more of a. I feel like the perception of Ritter that he'll have to overcome is that he's more of a game manager. I think because when you think of Cincinnati, you don't think about Desmond Ritter. You think about guys like Sauce Gardner. You think about last year Jared Dokes running the ball, and whoever they have running the ball now this year. So I didn't have Ritter was just underneath the cut for me, but definitely if they beat Notre Dame, he's going to get some talk for sure.
If anything, 4 touchdowns when you're running the ball a lot speaks even more, I feel like. But I mean, if he continues on that trajectory, then we'll continue talking about him. But if they do run the ball even more, then that might fall off. But I was impressed with his performance. Cincinnati's a top 10 team right now. Omar, we'll kind of go back and forth on some games to watch this week. What are some you're looking forward to?
So there's 2 on Friday night that I absolutely love. Well, one I love and one that's good for the Walter Payton race. The first one I absolutely love is Boise State versus UTEP, and that is for our WAC fans, a WAC legacy matchup from the early 2000s, but mostly because we get to see if this UTEP team's for real. They're 2-0. They looked dominant against New Mexico State. And this past weekend against Bethune-Cookman, they had trouble, but Bethune-Cookman's always got a solid program out there in the SWAC now. But we'll see a team with Gavin Hardison throwing the ball, doing well, working off that play action and that solid run game they have against Boise State. They go to the blue turf. And I'm excited to be frank. I think the minus 26.5 point spread, the 26.5 point spread in favor of Boise State, I think that's going to be too high in the end. I think UTEP's going to make a game of it because Dana Dimmel, former offensive coordinator of Bill Snyder, he was there during the Colin Klein years. He was there. Trying to think, like there's another guy in the mid 2010s. He was there in the Jake Waters years. And that when you think about those teams love to run the ball. Their quarterbacks can run it a little bit themselves. They run time off the clock. They wait for you to make mistakes. And I mean, we saw that Hank Bachmeier made a few mistakes on Thursday night against UCF, especially towards the end. So we'll see with that one. My second one, just because of Otis Weah on Friday night against Utah State, nationally televised on CBS Sports Network, 9:00 Eastern. We'll see Otis Weah take on an FBS defense, and that we'll see if that helps his Walter Payton campaign. That's a guy that we were high on that we wish North Dakota fed the ball more to. He had 22 carries in his first game, so I think they got the message loud and clear.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Yeah, UTEP's looked impressive so far. That will definitely be one of their biggest tests, if not the biggest of the year, versus Boise State. My first one is the Bayou Bucket Classic, Houston at Rice. You can watch that 6:30 Eastern on CBS Sports Network. Both teams are 0-1. Neither had great quarterback play. I am interested to see. We're kind of got a heated up Rice quarterback battle between Luke McCaffrey, CMC's brother, and Wiley. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Wiley Green, rather. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Rice quarterbacks specifically do, because McCaffrey did come in towards the end, even though Green won the job. So I'm excited to see that. And Houston, a lot of rumors have been joining the Big 12 even as early as later on this week. Will formally announce, and then not mid-season change of conferences. But I'm excited to see that game.
Rice has a deep quarterback room too. They also have Giovanni Johnson, who started in Wiley Green's absence in the Marshall upset last year. And the offense, they were actually outgained by I think almost like 100 yards or more. But Giovanni Johnson did his job and didn't make any mistakes. So deep quarterback room for Rice. My next game, I'm
Even you to know Rice's third string quarterback.
Hey man. Hey, let me tell you, when I was watching that game in my dimly lit barracks room, man, I was in a dark place, man. I'll just say I was in a dark emotional place, dude. Anyway, so that game was kind of an escape. But anyway, let's go to a happier note.
I
uh,
mean, watching Rice football is cheaper than therapy, Omar. So good for you, man, for finding that.
So, yeah, it's true. So speaking of therapy for this weekend, I'm not sure if you have this game. The 3:30 slot's absolutely loaded as I look at it. We're gonna briefly mention the 2018 Cheez It Bowl rematch we got. How come no one's not talking about that one? Absolutely unbelievable that no one's mentioning this. But instead, I'm gonna go with Buffalo versus Nebraska. And with the way Nebraska's looked the past couple weeks, I really think they're on upset alert for sure. And this will be a key game for Kevin Marks. Not only Kevin Marks actually, but also for Ron Cook Jr., who had 14 carries for 94 yards against Wagner. That could have been because they were up 45-0 at the half, so they just put him in. But we all know Buffalo loves to run the ball. Of course, Jarrett Patterson, and huge game like for the program too. If they beat Nebraska, like that'll show they haven't skipped a beat since Lance Leipold left for Kansas. So that's all I have to say. Like if you don't have an upset pick for next weekend, Buffalo, Nebraska should be your upset pick.
Absolutely. I've got another group of five school playing a power five school upset that I'll get to in just a couple minutes. My next game to watch is Western Kentucky at Army. You can watch that one at 11:30 Eastern on a CBS Sports Network. And I was impressed. Army, you went to this game. Army had four different players with rushing touchdowns, which was awesome. Western Kentucky has a quarterback that you mentioned, Bailey Zappi, with 424 yards and 7 tutties. That's why I'm taking the Hilltoppers in an upset.
Oh, not so fast, my friend. But honestly, this is a game that I am honestly kind of scared for because if our pass rush can't get there, I mean Bailey Zappi is a pro prospect. But no, it should be fun. But hey, don't sell short the Army passing game. We outpassed Georgia State. We had 98 yards. They had less than 98. So
Your leading quarterback was 1 for 2, Omar.
we had three quarterbacks complete passes, three quarterbacks completed passes. And I mean, Rice has a deep quarterback room. Army has a deeper one. We have five quarterbacks that have started games, five of them. We also had and also too, our third string quarterback is? Our third string quarterback had the longest run by a quarterback since 1920 when George Smythe ran a 95-yard touchdown against Navy. So deep quarterback room for Army. Well, I guess we'll go on with the Service Academy's theme. As we all know, it's the 20th anniversary, 9/11 this Saturday. Very solemn day. Just think of while you're watching college football at the 3:30 spot on CBS, a very good spot. We have Air Force versus Navy. And this one's interesting because Navy looks like I mean, I'm not gonna trash talk my rivals because I think college football is better when all the service academies are doing well. I just think it adds something so great to college football. But they lost 49-7 last week. At times the offense wasn't clicking, especially the quarterback run game. And last year, Marshall and I did a podcast about this, but last year Navy averaged they had 150 carries, and I think they ended up with just a little bit over 300 yards. So they ended up with less than 2 yards per carry from their quarterbacks. This time with sacks accounted for against Marshall, and we know that Marshall defense is good. Well, they picked it up in the second half, but their starting quarterback, Ty Lavatai, had 16 carries for 18 yards, and the offense just didn't look like it clicked as they accumulated much of their 337 yards in garbage time. So I don't know if Navy's in trouble, but we'll see. If they are in trouble. But again, 20th anniversary of 9/11. This I think is the game to watch. I think game day should have been at this game, honestly. Like, let's be honest. I mean, Iowa, I would say it's cool. They've been there before. I mean,
If you weren't going to be at Ohio State, Oregon, which I mean, if it were on an ESPN or a Disney network, then they would have been there. But yeah, if they weren't going to be there, then I agree. They should have been at that game. So especially since it was like on the day, right? So yeah, disappointing that they're not doing that. But hopefully they'll give it some attention on game day as well. I'm going to go my upset alert game, Eastern Michigan at Wisconsin. This is 7:00 Eastern on FS1. Samson Evans, running back from Eastern Michigan, 5 carries, 11 yards. Not very impressive. 3 touchdowns somehow in those 5 carries and 11 yards. So watch out for Samson Evans when they're on the goal line. Wisconsin is coming off of a disappointing loss versus Penn State. And they're then after this week, they're heading into a bye week before they play Notre Dame. So I don't know. I just kind of feel like it's a formula to get upset. You're looking forward to the bye week, then looking forward to Notre Dame. Might oversee Eastern Michigan a little bit. So yeah, we'll see. But I'm excited for it overall. And man, how awesome was Jump Around, by the way, in Wisconsin State. That was awesome to see, full crowd.
I agree. I kind of I'm pulling for honestly Wisconsin to win that one because I need them to be ranked when they play Army, so Army can beat them. First ranked wins in 72.
I'm trying to give the group of 5 attention. You keep, I don't know why you're on the power train today. I don't understand what's happening.
No, I'm just saying I'm on the train, but I want it to be beneficial for Army. Also, I think for my last two games, I'm gonna go with Colorado State, Vanderbilt, and Temple Akron. You know, these might go down to some of the worst games of the year.
Top programs, my gosh, man.
I'm just kidding, but those are on the schedule, and I have a very strange fascination with those two games because the programs involved are not in a good place at the moment. But on a serious note, honestly, I think this is more a big moment for broadcast TV. But you have Stanford versus USC on Fox at 10:30 Eastern. So we'll see how successful the After Dark slot is for network TV in that one. But I'm just wondering why they didn't do this sooner. Put After Dark games on network TV because what are they broadcasting at that time? Like, to be honest with you, unless NBC's got Saturday Night Live and of course you got the local news, but can't the local news just wait or they just put on a sister channel? I don't know how that works, but I'm fascinated by Stanford USC, and that'll be my last game, I think.
Man, I'll go with my last game. Utah at BYU. I know how big of a Utah fan you are, Omar. That one's going to be 10:15 Eastern time on ESPN. Devin Lloyd is a guy to watch for Utah. He's a linebacker, 7 tackles, a pick, and a sack in his debut. A guy on the other side of the ball for BYU, Neil Powell. I hope I'm saying that right. 8 receptions, 126 yards, and 2 touchdowns last week. Awesome story. 2019. Well, sad. Starts out sad. He was arrested for impaired driving, suspected for a DUI. Got a second chance with BYU, and man, from all the reports I'm reading, he is a vocal leader on that team and a leader on the field as well. With this 2 touchdown performance. So yeah, man, I'm excited to see that, a little late night football on ESPN.
For sure. And the Civil War is always great. And not just for personal reasons. I like rivalries when they're even, so I hope BYU can pull off a win. They can win one. Because Utah didn't look so great against Weber State. We'll be honest. They didn't look great, but we'll see. For sure. The Holy War. It's on. It's great to see rivalry. Also, shoot, I do have one more game. How I love my neutral site games. You got Texas A&M Colorado out in Denver. It's not called Mile High Stadium anymore. Shoot, and it's not called Sports Authority anymore. The stadium in Denver. They're hosting that one. It should be cool. Texas A&M looked impressive against Kent State in the second half. That's a Kent State team that a lot of people were high on just because they score so many points. They held them to 10 points. Colorado, I think they had a less noteworthy beginning game. I'm not sure who they played. Again, so many games. They won their game. They ended up beating Northern Colorado 35-7, but that's a team that went 5-2 last year. Or is it 4-2? It's hard because in a pandemic season, not everyone played 12 games or even close to it. But they went to the Alamo Bowl last year. They were a solid team, but this one should be a solid test for Texas A&M at number 5. They're 17-point favorites, but I got a feeling that game's gonna be closer, especially the altitude.
I do not know the name of Empower Field, Omar. Everyone knows that on the tip of their tongue.
The sponsorship changes. It changes so much.
I know it changes a lot. Caesars Superdome, it is all changing. So I'll just throw in one last one. Pittsburgh at Tennessee. I think Tennessee's a little bit on upset alert. Pitt with an amazing ground game. 5 different players with rushing touchdowns. Hell of a 51-7 win over UMass. Tennessee showed some promise for the first time in a very long time. So we'll see. Excited to see that. But yeah, man, we've got a full slate this Saturday, and man, I think that about wraps it up. Anything else for you, man?
No, I just gotta say, Pitt. I don't think Pitt, if they beat Tennessee, that'll be an upset. If I'm being honest, because
Yeah,
Pitt's so experienced.
argument. Yeah.
Yeah, like Kenny Potter, man. He's been around for what seems like forever, but the man, he's a great quarterback. I like him a lot, for sure. But yeah, no, it'll be great. And again, just with everything happening, especially lately on the world landscape, especially with Afghanistan, just give a thought this 9/11 for everything that's happened in the past 2 decades, all the lives torn apart. Because yeah, I'm in the army, but I'll be honest, I think war is I've never been to war, but war is not something that I think we should desire as humans. I'm sorry to get deep and get get all lovey-dovey, but it's just 9/11. A lot of emotions will be there. Try to find a healthy emotional balance. I'm all about emotions. But I also want to issue a formal apology too. That was on the schedule. I want to apologize. I want to apologize to Ryan Greenhagen out of Fordham for earlier this spring. We had a podcast where we suggested that the Patriot League be different and make a punter the defensive player of the year, which the argument was merited at the time. Yet Ryan Greenhagen shocked us all as the Fordham Rams stepped into Memorial Stadium, into that great Coliseum, and Ryan Greenhagen had 31 tackles. Yes, Ryan Greenhagen is the real deal. Yes, Ryan Greenhagen only played 2 games and exceeded his season total from the spring season in 1 game, but I mean, Ryan Greenhagen's impressive, and maybe we'll see him in, if not the Shrine Bowl, we'll probably see him in the Hula Bowl, if anything, if he's a senior. But Ryan Greenhagen, I'd like to apologize. You did deserve the defensive player of the year. I am very sorry.
I, I I'm glad America accepts your apology, Omar. So thank you for saying that. Yeah. So man, that about wraps it up for me. I know I can't wait for this weekend, and man, we've got NFL football starting tomorrow night as well. So yeah, man. Excuse me. That's my dog, Gronky, named after Robert Gronkowski, playing with this toy. So
I will also add this. I'll forget you even mentioned that the NFL that on this podcast. Unbelievable. I'm just kidding, but Boston College this weekend wearing their red bandana uniforms. It's always a great occasion when they do. Look up the story of Wells Crowther, an amazing story of heroism and courage that should be remembered to the end of this day. And plus, like, Boston College has had some memorable games in those uniforms. Like in 2014, they beat number 9 USC in the first ever red bandana game. In 2017, they blew up Florida State 35-3, where future Jets number 1 receiver Jeff Smith threw a touchdown on a trick play. And then 2018, I think they wore them against Miami. And I'm looking right now, looking at the YouTube clip. Yeah, they wore the red bandana helmets against Miami and beat Miami at Chestnut Hill, and I think they're gonna cover against UMass. So again, just another thing happening on 9/11 weekend, but really excited. I really am. And that's all I have to say, Jackson. I know we've tried to close this a couple of times, but I think now we're ready.
yeah, man. Well, that's it. I'm excited to see it. And man, easy money. Florida 27.5 over UCF or USF. So
27 and a half now.
was
Like
it?
like the line dropped. No, I'm just wondering because it was at 20. I
Oh,
thought the
no, no,
line
no,
would have
no.
gone
I
up.
thought it was originally that. What was it when you bet on
No,
it?
it was 29, I believe, because I put
29.
money on that because that was free money.
Yeah, no, it was. So yeah, enjoy that. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yep. See you next time. Peace, love, and soul, everyone.